Hi guys, I'm going to try another attempt of recording or pre-recording this lecture and this lecture slides. You've hopefully managed to navigate to the correct place. You've noticed I put what's called a Padlet board on the blackboard, which has lots and lots of activities including this video embedded, and all I ask is you to try and engage with that with me and try and contribute to the session best you can. This information hopefully will come in handy with your second assignment that's going to be hopefully issued next week. I have a bit of a task for you this week to do, and that involves you collaboratively, remotely, trying to get yourselves into teams and figuring out a way in which your teams are going to communicate. There is a forum on the Padlet board that I'd like you to post your ideas, issues, comments on. I'll hopefully give you a quick whistle-stop tour of Padlet in a second. Okay, so just to start you off, to get you thinking, and I like an icebreaker. So a woman watched her husband plunge headfirst down a deep ravine. She returned home to find him in the kitchen chopping onions. How is this possible? What I want you to do is have a think about that, and later on post your suggestion on the tab that's applicable on Padlet. How is this possible? Okay, so a quick recap of last week. Hopefully you found that video useful, having me blabbering on over the top of the slides. Please share your feedback in the comments section on the Padlet board. I'd like to feed this back to Charles and the rest of the team to find out whether this method of remote learning works, or whether you'd prefer just a worksheet with some tasks on. I don't know, but certainly having my voice over the top with a little bit of hindsight and background knowledge maybe is easier than just reading the slides alone, but everyone's each their own, everyone's different, so please share any feedback. So last week we discussed some principles of effective management. We talked about managing a team, but also your boss. There's something that's called managing up. We explored self-development ideas that may be able to improve our personal management capabilities. And we revisited some ideas on motivation, links back to the module 4002, a little bit of Maslow and a little bit of Hertzberg. Okay, so session 9 is all about professional responsibilities and identifying and managing risk. Now I'm sure you've covered risk in other modules, but risk is one of them parts of project management that should go on throughout the whole life cycle of a project, not just at the start when you're writing your PMP. So what we're going to look at this week, we're going to explore the concepts of risk in projects. We're going to understand the requirements for project risk management. We're going to describe a typical risk management process, and we're going to discuss risk from a professional responsibilities perspective. And like I mentioned last week, it's very difficult to do both or multitask as such, but please try and take notes, have a notepad and pen alongside you. You've also got the beauty now of hitting the pause button, so potentially you can either watch the whole lecture in full and then do the activities, or if you prefer, hit the pause button, take some notes, do the activities as they come up, and then reflect over them at the end. It's entirely up to you. You're in charge of your own learning, whether you do it all in one 3-hour spell or whether you do it over the next 7 days. It's entirely up to you. So, quick question. In relation to project management, what is risk? Just take a couple of minutes just to think about that one, and just jot down a few ideas that spring to mind on your pad of paper next to you. Okay, so definition of risk from the APM: an uncertain event or a set of circumstances that should it occur, will have an effect on achievement of one or more objectives. I'll read that again because I kind of mumbled that, didn't I? An uncertain event or a set of circumstances that, should it occur, will have an effect on achievement of one or more objectives. So that's kind of looking at it from a project management perspective. Okay, so projects by their very nature include some level of risk. All projects, programs and portfolios are inherently risky because they are unique, constrained, based on assumptions, performed by people and subject to external influences. Some projects are inherently more riskier than others, and risk can affect achievement of objectives either positively or negatively. Risks include both opportunities and threats and should be managed through risk management process. So a project manager needs to know what the level of risk is to their project and what they can do to avoid risks or manage risks in this case. So risk management usually takes the formal approach to identifying and managing risks. And most organisations that run projects will have, or should have, a risk management process. And using the recommended APM routes, they have an initiation phase, the process. They have an identify risks phase, which should be ongoing throughout the life cycle, not just at this point. They should assess the risks, quantify them, look at the impact versus probability and the actual impact if that probability happens or the actual risk occurs. Plan responses, how do they manage those risks if they happen? Implement the responses and then manage the risk process throughout. So this is something that should be continuous throughout the project, not just something you do at the start, because it's ideal world when you're planning. Sometimes things happen. So if you look at some of the construction projects at this current time, when now that we're in potential lockdown, they couldn't have planned for this 2 or 3 years ago when they were building these large complex buildings. Suddenly they're having to react and respond to change. Hopefully on their risk there was some sort of contingency for a reduced workforce, but certainly it's very challenging times at the moment. So the APM has issued what's called the PRAM Guide, Project Risk Analysis and Management. The document's on the right hand side on this slide. It is available to download on Blackboard and it's within the Padlet board, so if you really want to look at that in detail, there's a digital copy available for you. And it's a systematic and disciplined approach to controlling risk that can help projects be successful, and that is in terms of their management of those. And it sets out methods for identification and recording of risk, highlighting consequences and establishing appropriate management action. So it's quite a useful guide, published by the APM. You're more than welcome to have a look at that and get a little bit more information that might be helpful in the future. So why is risk management important? And the PMI in 2020 on their literature, on their website, say risk management is the forecasting and evaluation of financial risks together with the identification of procedures to avoid or minimise their impact. So your first task, a little bit more interactive this session. It's a case of getting you to do a little bit. What I'd like you to do is get a sheet of paper, a pen, pencils, colouring pens, crayons, entirely optional. What I want you to do is create a mind map with the word risk management in the centre, and I basically want you to use that mind map to demonstrate your understanding of risk management and look at these 4 areas. What does it mean to you? What are your experiences of it? Do you or others value it? Do you understand what it is? And what I want you to do is just basically brain dump onto the paper, sketch, colour, be as creative as you want. We can be just a pen and paper if you want to, but if you want to just engage in it a little bit more, put some colour there, that's fine. And when you've done that, scan it or photograph it and then upload it to the Padlet board. There's a section for task 1. And what I want is to see a collection. I think there's 23 of you in the class. I'd like to see a collection of your different takes on risk management, and it's something we can collaboratively look at. And feel free to comment on your peers' appears is my maps once they start posting them on there. And nice to create a nice interactive session from this. So by all means pause the video, or if you prefer watch all the video and the slides and then return it and do this task. But I'd like to see, certainly by this time next week, the board busy with activities and interactions between us all. So why is risk management important? Although risk management costs money and adds a level of bureaucracy to projects, the process has several benefits. You identify contingencies, you can plan for budgets, you can plan for actions. It enables informed decisions to be made, enables risk to be controlled, and if it's done well, it can improve the performance of project teams. It adds a level of quality, a level of governance, a level of considerations and good practice. Over time, these can be measured. So the APM benefits of PRAM is a document within that booklet that I've copied you into. Hard benefits from H1 to H8. So H1 enables better informed and more believable plans, schedules and budgets, increases the likelihood of a project adhering to its schedules and budgets, leads to the use of more suitable type of contract, allows a more meaningful assessment of contingencies, discourages the acceptance of financially unsound projects, so again it helps with gate review decisions, contributes to build up of statistical information to assist better management in the future, enables a more objective comparison of alternatives, and identifies and allocates responsibility to the best risk owner. So those are some of the hard benefits the APM have identified. Some of the soft benefits: improves corporate experience and general communication, leads to a common understanding and improved team spirit, helps distinguish between good luck, good management, bad luck, bad management, helps develop ability of staff to assess risks, focuses project management attention on the real and most important issues, and facilitates greater risk taking, thus increasing the benefits gained. Demonstrates a responsible approach to customers and provides a fresh view of the personnel issues in a project. Creates lasting benefits. Experienced risk practitioners will argue that the major benefits of good risk management process are obtained early in the project life cycle. The actions leading up to the production of first version of the risk register require the team to think about the project differently, and issues and challenges are appreciated. This way of thinking will stay with the team throughout the project. And again, it reinforces good decision making throughout the project life cycle. So benefits to organisations of PRAM. The benefits listed earlier are mainly focused on the project. Benefits do occur for the organisation as a whole as a result of risk management. So there's a few extra ones here. H9, compliance with corporate governance requirements. H10, a greater potential for future business with existing customers, again restoring confidence or showing competency. H11, reduces cost base. Soft benefits, S9, better reputation as a result of fewer headline project failures, better customer relations due to improved performance on current projects, and S11, a less stressful working environment. It's not all good though. Simply implementing a risk management process does not guarantee success. Poor application of the process can lead to problems, poor decisions and objections to its use. And you may have heard of a phrase called garbage in, garbage out. And funny, I was actually watching Peaky Blinders while I was reading through these slides earlier in the week, and Alfie Solomons, who was played by Tom Hardy's character, who's pictured below, actually quoted in his broad London Cockney accent, "Garbage in, gospel out, Thomas Shelby," which made me chuckle a little bit, and apologies for a really bad take on that. But what garbage in, gospel out kind of implies is if the data entered into the system is bad, any reports coming out of it will also be bad. So the antidote to garbage in, gospel out is trust but verify. It's okay to assume your data reports are good as long as you've verified that they're good. So again, it's a bit of quality management. It's particularly using IT when you're building information systems. You've got to ensure that the results, the information going in is the integrity is there, it's right, so that when you run reports, the information from the reports is valid. And the same could be applied about your risk management plans and your registers. The information's got to be accurate. So the output from the process is only as good as the information provided. Inputs to risk management process must be verified, validated and checked for bias. So we don't want any objectivity or subjectivity in it. It needs to be objective. And project objectives need to be clear and assumptions recorded and agreed. And expert opinions must be verifiable. Can second opinions be obtained to check consistency? And the output from the risk process needs to be evaluated, not accepted without question. So ownership of risk. Risk management often involves the use of specialist staff or external consultants. This can lead to project teams viewing these external people as being responsible for the risk management. So if you bring someone in to advise on your risk, do they take up responsibility for it? Who takes the hit if it goes wrong? And the risks of project must be owned by the project manager and the team. The external advisors are simply facilitating and advising the process. So basically what it's saying is here, you can't just blame that third party advisors. You've got to take ownership of it as a project manager and the team that's working on the project. We need to be responsible for our own decision making and take ownership. And that's not just in project management and in risk, that should be in every walk of life really. We should all become responsible professionals. So failing to re-evaluate. Risk analysis provides a snapshot. Circumstances can change, often rapidly in projects. Risks need to be regularly reviewed and reassessed, as do the recommended actions from the previous assessment, so it's an ongoing process. The risk register should be a live document and frequently reviewed. This also means more than just adding risks, but actually undertaking reassessment. Sometimes you may have a risk that was scored very high, that actually when you re-evaluate and once you've had good practice doing a particular role, it might not be as big a risk as it first was thought out, so it may need tweaking slightly. And it's difficult to prove it worked. On the right hand side you've got January 1st 2000, the day the earth will stand still. I remember this. I was actually an apprentice in IT during this period, and I was working on a few projects going around computers in Glaxo, ensuring that they were millennial proof so that they didn't break and have huge chemical spillages all over the site and cause lots of problems. So it can be difficult to determine and measure the effectiveness of a risk management process, as it inherently deals with the uncertainty. Some risks may fail to materialise. Was that down to good risk management or poor risk identification and assessment? So there's a few woolly grey areas here. If projects finish within time or within cost constraints, how much of this was attributed to effective management of risk, or was it good or high estimating, or were you just lucky? And do you remember the Year 2 Care book? You may have heard of it. Whether you can remember, I'm not sure.
There still exists a general state of either denial, complacency, or even apathy about both the reality and the potential effects of Y2K.
By the end of the 90s, many of us were happy slaves to our computers. But our new masters had a trick they'd forgotten to tell us about.
The basic idea on Y2K was that for convenience, all these computer programs, when it came to do dates, you only needed 2 numbers. Why use 4 numbers when you only need 2? And then they recognized, what date is a computer going to think it is when we get to 2000?
One simple date change for man. One major screw-up for computer.
At the stroke of midnight, January 1st, 2000, elevators may stop. Heat may vanish. Credit cards and ATMs may cease to function. Airplanes and trains may come to a halt.
People were terrified the world was going to end.
This is not one of those summer movies where you can close your eyes during the scary parts.
With nearly everything in our economy run by computers, the prospect of a digital meltdown is too huge to contemplate.
I was worried because the whole computer game was new to us, and I was a little ignorant. We didn't know what we didn't know.
And many thought what we didn't know was going to hurt us.
I've got a revolver right now, but I wanted something more.
That was a Dragon's Breath shell. It can shoot a 4,000-degree flame 300 feet. It's also the most popular ammunition among Y2K customers at KGS Guns and Ammo.
There was a fear. Everything's in the internet. Everything's in computers. And we're going to lose it all. And Jesus is coming back.
With pre-millennium tensions growing, the president appoints a crisis management expert to prevent a Y2K meltdown.
8 to 10% of the population were fairly confident that this was going to be an apocalypse. The president called me one night and said, here's an office and an assistant, and don't let the world stop.
An interesting take on the year 2K. It actually came and went, whether it was because of all the contingencies that they put in place, I'm not sure, but we certainly didn't have global meltdown, and only in America could they be as panicked and as crazy as to buy flamethrowers to prevent any catastrophes. So the process itself and risk management can cause problems. If some members of the project team are not convinced that the risk management is a good thing, there is risk that the benefits get oversold to get buy-in. This might lead to a lack of credibility in the process, which could demotivate staff. This problem can arise with senior management too, or anywhere there is a lack of flexibility and a willingness to engage with new ideas. And sometimes full benefits are not realised. Risk management can be seen as a tick box exercise, something they have to do for governance, something a project manager must do. Projects have a risk process, a risk register, risk analysis is done, and mitigating actions developed. The team stops short of carrying out the actions to mitigate risks proactively, which can result in improvements to schedule and costs being missed. So what is risk? The term risk can be ambiguous. It's important to understand what it means in projects and project management. So a risk event, an individual uncertainty which can be identified, assessed and managed. A project risk, the combined effect of individual risk events to a project, often called risk exposure. Uncertainty can affect the project positively or negatively. Risk threats, which have negative consequences, obviously these need to be avoided or minimised. And opportunities, which are positive consequences, these need to be exploited or maximised. And the aim is to optimise the achievement of the project objectives and the resulting benefits. So a typical risk management process, and if you've done the APM or the APM Foundation or the APMP, which goes in a little bit more detail, you're required to memorise this. INAPI was how I remembered it. So there's various steps, various phases, and it's managed throughout, as you can see with that big rectangle at the bottom. So you've got the initiate stage, the identify, the assess, plan response, and then implement response. And it's a two-way thing with management throughout that life cycle, throughout the project. So the initiate phase, setting the scope, objectives, and context for the risk management process. So it's actually documented and it's clear. You know exactly what the process is. You define the project, ensuring a common understanding of the project to which the risk management process will be applied, and focusing the project, which is aligning the details of the risk management process to specific requirements of the project. So on the right hand side you can see defining the project should have well-defined objectives, well-defined scope, well-defined strategy and an outline plan. And focusing the process, understand how the risk management process is applied to this project, the importance of the project in the organisation, the size of the project, the value of it, the complexity, the degree of change resulting, stability of the project baseline, novelty of approach, i.e. the technology, and prior knowledge of risks faced. Then there's the identifying phase. This is where you identify the actual potential risks, opportunities, etc. So the purpose is to identify risk events as comprehensively as possible, practical and cost effective. Some options for risk response may be identified at this stage, but this is also considered separately later. And thought needs to be given on how to identify as many of the risks of the project as possible. And you need to consult stakeholders. Do you need some external advice and guidance on their point of view and opinion? And also go back to your lessons learned from other projects, because you can learn an awful lot from things that have happened holistically from previous projects. And any risks identified should be validated for their accuracy and relevance to the project. So sometimes it becomes almost like a brainstorming activity, and lots and lots of risks or potential risks get put down. Sometimes they may not be relevant. So for example, if you're building a large skyscraper on a hillside, nowhere near a river or sea, the risk of it flooding is quite low. So is it relevant to have something on your risk register perhaps? So again, that's a very broad example, I know, but they need to be validated, check that they actually are accurate and relevant to the project. And then you've got the assess phase. So increased understanding of the identified risks enables appropriate and effective decisions to be made. Risk events are assessed and overall project risk and exposure is calculated. An assessment can be quantified to be either qualitative or qualitative. And the potential impact can be considered, whether it's positive or negative, and the actual degree of the impact. So this gives the risk an actual value that you can use to decide on your appropriate responses. It says typically risks are assessed in terms of their probability of it occurring and the impact if it does occur. And may also consider timings in the assessment. When are the risks likely to occur, and can you help with prioritisation? So, if you've got a little bit of float, you can kind of play around with your scheduling and make sure that if any of these risks do happen, you've got time to implement the mitigation and get things back on track. And any responses identified at this stage need to be assessed in terms of their cost and the degree to which they reduce the severity of the risk or exploit the opportunity. So if you have to transfer the risk to something else, there may be another contractor or a third party organisation, there's going to be a cost involved. Is that budgeted in? Have you got a contingency pot of money? And it just helps with the planning. Planning makes you stronger, remember, in project management. And there's lots of different ways to quantify your risks. One particular way is doing the risk probability and impact charts, where the impact of the risk needs to be assessed, the probability of the risk occurring needs to be assessed. And this particular chart here is basically it's put into quadrants, 1 to 4. The simplicity rate for each is 1 to 4. The larger the number, the larger the impact or probability. It's almost like a traffic light system. If you do the top right is red and the bottom left is green. And basically what you do is you list all your risks, and then you look at the probability of them happening and the potential impact, and you should then be able to plot within those quadrants. And then obviously you'd start looking at the top right as your high impact, high probabilities, and plan suitable responses. The ones in the 4 quadrant, you may decide to go along with the risks and take the gamble and not worry too much about your contingencies. It might be something that you'll approach as and when it happens, if it happens. There's various different types that you may come across. Risk evaluation matrix, risk assessment matrices. They all have like a traffic-like type of approach to how you quantify those risks. But the most important thing is that you have those risks and you do have some sort of mapping to a chart that allows you to make key decisions later on. So this takes us to task 2, and this is something I've used with my IT students when we're looking at cyber security and planning computer networks and things. Just thought we'd share this one with you, and it's a very short activity for you to do. By all means pause the video and have a go at it, or again watch the whole slides and then decide how you want to do this. So in this scenario, picture yourself on Blackpool Prom or Brighton or Margate or Morecambe at a push. So we've got a busy seaside hotel that has a computer network of 10 computers plus a printer or printers, and 3 of these computers have credit card readers that have access to the internet. So imagine a reception desk with 3 computers with credit card readers on there. So I'm thinking on this line it's GDPR, data protection. This is something that businesses and organisations need to be conscious of. So during the day, the front desk has 3 members of staff on duty. However, after midnight, there's only 1 night porter covering the desk that has other hotel duties. This could be simple things like cleaning the toilets, or doing the room service runs, or doing a patrol of the site for security purposes. So there's not somebody manning that desk at all times. In addition, the hotel has a wireless access for use by residents who have their own devices. The power supply to the hotel has recently been rerouted and now has an overhead cable which runs through an exposed area near sea cliffs. However, there is no backup or emergency generators. So in that scenario, you've got to look at the context of the computer systems that are in there. What risks are there to the hotel's computer systems? So what I want you to do is identify some risks to that network. And then once you've identified the risks, there's probably about 3 or 4 at least there, maybe 5 at a push. But then what I want you to do is sketch. You can do this at pen and paper, or if you want to do it a bit more complex, you can. Create a little risk probability chart and plot them on there, and then suggest some appropriate countermeasures to reduce the threats. Okay, so for the 3 most significant, look at different things you could do. So if it's potential that you've got a security breach or theft or a computer virus maybe, or some hacking, how can they be mitigated? And then finally, I want you to discuss the advantages and disadvantages of risk analysis. What I'd like you to do is then post your answers on the Blackboard page, and we'll have a little look at them at a later date. Okay, so you need to then plan your responses. So if not done already, this phase exists to ensure that risks are considered and responses are proposed and evaluated. This can result in changes to project scope, strategy, an increased budget perhaps, and some rescheduling. Any responses themselves must be risk assessed, i.e. secondary risks and residual risk, and reassess project risk taking into account risk event reassessments. And you may see here that there's the documents here. You've got the threats. Do you avoid them? Do you mitigate them by reducing the probability or impact of the risk? Do you transfer those risks? Or sometimes you just accept them. So again, this chart here, depending on how you've plotted those responses, is subject to what your decision-making processes are. Again, on the right-hand side, it's opportunities. So do you exploit them, ensure the opportunity is realised? Could we make some money from this? Could we take a new skill set from this particular risk or opportunity? Enhance it, so increase the probability or impact of the opportunity. You could argue Sports Direct have been doing that this week with people working from home, and they've hiked the prices up of sports equipment, and the massive risk to people's health was a secondary thought for Sports Direct, but they've hiked the prices up of their goods online because they know people are going to be working from home, and they're encouraged to exercise, so people will be ordering sports and clothing and equipment, and it's a little bit naughty, but they're seeing it as an opportunity to enhance the business and possibly exploit the situation. Do they share, have a third party take on responsibilities for opportunity, or do they accept the opportunity? So responses are important. So plan responses to risk events. Typically a trade-off between the resources committed to risk responses and the effect on achieving project objectives. Action should only be taken when the project manager is convinced that the response will be effective and efficient. No point making a response unless it adds value and is effective and efficient. So to evaluate responses, a project manager must consider these factors. So relative importance of the project objectives, the significance of the risk event relative to project objectives, expected effectiveness of the response, in addressing the risk and enabling the project to achieve its objectives, the likely effect on time, cost and quality constraints of the project, and expected cost of the action, including opportunity, cost, compared to any other causes of action or no action in some cases. So plan responses to the project risk takes account of the overall project risk, requires the team to initiate a risk process, but this time considering the overall project risk rather than the individual risk events. So whatever has happened, how is it going to affect the overall project? May well affect project strategy and thus future iterations of the risk management process. And consider strategically, maybe even at program and portfolio level. And separating project risk out in this way saves time that might be spent on redundant detailed planning if attempted too early. And detailed tactical level responses cannot be evaluated properly without considering the project strategy. And this is aimed to deliver an effective project plan which incorporates the results of previous risk management phases. So it's an ongoing iterative process to ensure, trying to reduce the chances of our projects failing or having problems further down the life cycle. So once you've done your plan responses, you then implement your responses, and this ensures that effective actions are taken based on earlier decisions. So again, these responses are based on the donkey work and the groundwork that you've done previously. It's not on a whim as such. Includes actions affecting risk events and overall strategic decisions or strategic direction based on project risk. Responsibilities for implementing responses should be well defined and unambiguous. And people charged with implementing responses need to be empowered with appropriate authority and resources. And risk events should be monitored so that the response and or contingency can be adjusted or acted upon accordingly. And well-defined close-out criteria should be defined to enable risks to be removed from the risk register. And risks should be reported upon frequently. For example, individual risk events, overall exposure, status of any reduction or exploitation activities, contingency provision, and effectiveness of the risk management process. And you need to manage the process. So again, I showed you that chart earlier, the management of the process should be throughout all the phases. It's not just left in individual silos. So ensure that the risk management process continues to be effective. No point having a risk management process if it's not going to add value or be effective. It's the responsibility of the project manager, and assesses if the risk management process is being used properly and is being effective. Has it got the correct resources used? Is the process proactive rather than reactive? Any responses to risks timely? So it's, again, it's a quality, it comes under governance as well. It's an important step in project management. And can be conducted either formally and informally. Okay, so the third task for you is the role of the project manager in the 6 phases of risk management. So I'd like you to do a little bit of research here. You may wish to pair up and do this as in a mini group as such. Again, it's difficult. There's a challenge there because we are now working remotely and we should not really be meeting at all under the advice and guidance from the government at all. So there's a little challenge for you, whether you do this via Skype or via email, Facebook Messenger, entirely up to you. So what I want you to do is look at those 6 phases of the risk management process, i.e. initiate, identify, assess, plan responses, implement responses and manage the process, and identify the project manager's role and responsibilities. Then consider from a professional perspective what the project manager's responsibilities are and give reasons. So again, this can be done on a sheet of paper, it could be done electronically. Basically what I want you to do is collaborate with somebody, have a think about those sort of things. There's no right or wrong answer. I'm not testing you, it's not a challenge as such of what you previously know. I want you to have a bit of a read and see what's out there. There's 1 or 2 useful videos on YouTube as well. And basically I want you to post your findings and what format you deem fit onto the Padlet board. And again, this is all about us collaborating, sharing under difficult digital circumstances. But again, it's a new challenge for you. And in the future you may work in virtual project management teams. One of the dissertations that I'm going to be supervising over by one of the final year students is how project managers cope working in virtual teams. They may be working in Dubai on a project, but input is coming in from different parts of the world, so these digital tools that we're using will become part and parcel of project management going forward, I'm sure. Okay, and that takes us to the summary. So it's a little bit shorter than last week because there's a little bit more interaction with yourselves this time. So to summarise, we've explored the concept of risk in projects. We understand the requirements for project risk management. We've described a typical risk management process, and we've discussed risk from a professional responsibilities perspective. And there's a few articles there within the APM for you to look at for any extra reading. Again, if you're really struggling, look at the essential reading on the Blackboard page. There is links to ebooks, journals, etc. that give you lots of information as well. And the final thing I wanted to talk to you about is assignment 2. Assignment 2 I'm going to issue properly next week, but you may have seen on the module descriptors it actually involves group work, which again presents a whole new dynamic and issue in itself. I'm not expecting you all to be able to do a group presentation live, but what I'm looking at is potentially you creating the material so that in the future you could, if that was the case. We'll discuss that in more detail next week, but your first challenge this week is to get into groups. So I'm not going to tell you what your groups are. I'm going to empower you to select your peers, but what I want you to do once you have chosen your groups is post your groups on the Padlet board so that I know where you're up to. Now I do hope and I assume you've all got access to a computer or a desktop or a laptop, potentially have webcams and Skypes. You've hopefully got a mobile phone for Facebook Messenger at the very least. If you have issues with any of that technology, please feed this back to me on the actual Padlet board so that we can maybe make some plans and contingencies so that nobody's disadvantaged and we can all do a good job with assignment 2. In the meantime, between now and seeing you again, I'm going to be working on the marking of assignment 1. So hopefully very soon I'll be able to get some feedback to you so you know how you've done. Okay, so your first challenge is remote working, allocation of groups, and I'm going to leave that up to yourself. I'm going to empower you to make that decisions. I don't want to put you all in a group. I don't know how it works within your departments. I'm assuming you're all working remotely from home now. That may pose a few challenges as well, but do share your feedback with me, okay, because it's interesting because we're all adapting to change at the moment in not too pleasant circumstances, but hopefully you're all coping okay and hopefully you're all well. But let's take the necessary precautions. And thank you very much for listening. Just before I go, I'm just going to minimise this screen. I'm just going to quickly show you the Padlet board that I have created for this. At the minute it's work in progress. It probably won't look like this when it's embedded on Blackboard, but what you can see here is where your slides that I'm recording at the minute will be. There's various tasks here that you can post in there. If you click on the actual Padlets, you can upload the documents, you can link videos, you can take photographs. Please use this as freely as you want. There's a video here on risk management from Chris Davenport that's quite an interesting read. The APM Pram guide is here if you want to post answers to the icebreaker questions. Over here is the instructions I've asked you. I've just been discussing about the assignment, where you can look at various different things, and there's going to be a box for you to post any feedback. Please be kind. I want to know really what you think of this sort of format, or whether you prefer me just to email you a worksheet. I'm trying to be as innovative as I can so that you're not disadvantaged in any way. Okay, so that takes us to the end of this week's session. Please try to engage. I've had another group that I'm currently teaching that we're going to all this trouble to create these resources, and they've not even attempted any of the activities. They're only disadvantaging themselves. Now, I don't know their reasons. It may well be that they have other commitments, or they are working on the activities, they just haven't uploaded things yet. I'm leaving it totally in your hands. I'm trusting and empowering you to take responsibility and ownership of your studies. Remember, university studying is not just about doing the work in the classroom and in the spare time at work. You know, there's an expectation when you do a degree that you do so many hours of home study, home reading as well. The students that do that tend to get the better marks, and they lead to the better prospects further down the line in their career. So please take it on board, please engage in what we're doing, and hopefully you'll have no problems. But thanks for listening. Hopefully I'll speak to you all next week. Please engage on this board as best you can, and please share your feedback. But most importantly, stay safe, keep well, and I hope you and your family are all okay, and I'll see you soon.